Do you ever wonder what hurts more than being forgotten by your family? Amabel, 34 years old, co-founder of a green tech company in Seattle, knows the answer, living in the shadow of her own sister. Every morning, she brews coffee, reads environmental news, but her heart sinks under the weight of memories, her parents skipping her national awards ceremony to attend Mila's fashion launch, her 38-years-old sister, a celebrated designer and family favorite. Amabel is brilliant, resilient, but the emotional scars leave her lonely in her small apartment. For 3 years, she quietly sent $22,000 to cover her parents' bills and insurance, never receiving a single thank you. Her family calls her distant, her work pointless compared to Mila's glamour. Desperate for recognition, Amabel starts to wonder, does her family even see her as one of their own? That invisible pain burns like a smoldering fire, waiting to erupt. In her family's eyes, Amabel was always a faint shadow behind Mila's dazzling light. Mila, with her glamorous dresses and charismatic charm, was her parents' pride, the one they boasted about at every family gathering. Mila just signed a deal with a major brand, her father once declared, eyes gleaming, while Amabel sat quietly at the corner of the table, her plate of food growing cold. Her work, building a startup to create renewable energy solutions, was dismissed by her parents as confusing and something nobody cares about. They called her aloof, always busy with her machines, as if the sleepless nights she spent perfecting investor pitches were meaningless hobbies. But the deepest cut wasn't their mockery. It was the silence, the absence of a single question like, "Are you okay?" or "How's your work?" Instead, they only remembered Amabel when the electric, water, or home insurance bills were due. For 3 years, Amabel quietly sent $22,000 to keep her parents' Portland home running smoothly. Lights stayed on, water flowed, internet hummed, all thanks to the steady stream of money she sent without complaint. When her mother called at midnight about a broken heater, Amabel silently wired the funds. When her father grumbled about rising insurance costs, she covered the difference without question. She didn't do it for praise but out of a naive belief that one day her parents would look at her with the same pride they reserved for Mila. That hope, fragile as a candle in a storm, was snuffed out one late spring afternoon when Amabel decided to return home to plan her parents' 35th wedding anniversary. The anniversary was always a big deal in their family. Despite her packed schedule of meetings and project drafts, Amabel spent weeks preparing. She arranged a special gift, a $5,000 trip to Tuscany, a dream destination her parents had mentioned for their honeymoon but never visited. She imagined her mother hugging her, tears in her eyes, and her stern father cracking a rare smile. She wanted to stand with them, not as a silent benefactor, but as a cherished daughter. Excited, Amabel called home one evening as Seattle's sky burned with a crimson sunset. "I'm coming early to help with the anniversary," she said, voice brimming with enthusiasm. "I've got a special gift, you're going to love it." But her father's voice on the other end carried no warmth. A long pause followed, filled only by his heavy breathing. Then he spoke, his tone cold as stone, "Amabel, don't come this year." She thought she misheard, her grip tightening on the phone. "What?" "I've cleared my schedule. I want to be there with everyone." Her father cleared his throat, as if suppressing something. "Mila's bringing her new boyfriend to meet us. Raymond, a marketing director at a big company. He's accomplished, important. Your work, it's hard to explain. Your presence would make Mila uncomfortable, ruin the mood. It's best you stay in Seattle." Amabel felt her blood freeze. She stood in her apartment, the dim glow of a table lamp casting shadows on her pale face. "You mean I'd embarrass the family?" she asked, her voice trembling, clinging to a faint hope this was a misunderstanding. But her father didn't hesitate. "Yes," he said, his words sharp as a blade. "Mila is our pride. You just complicate things. If you insist on coming, don't call me your father anymore." A sharp beep echoed as he hung up, leaving Amabel in the deafening silence of her apartment. She stood frozen, still clutching the phone, as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. Her father's words, "Don't call me your father anymore," echoed in her mind, each syllable a hammer shattering the last fragments of the family she tried to hold on to. She remembered the nights she sent money in secret, the times she quietly fixed their problems, only to be met with indifference. She recalled her father's proud gaze when Mila entered a room and the dismissive glance he spared her, as if she were a ghost. But now, the truth cut deeper. She wasn't just invisible, she was a burden to be erased to protect Mila's perfect image. Amabel sank into a chair, her eyes vacant as she stared out the window. Rain began to fall, droplets streaking down the glass like the tears she couldn't shed. A storm of emotions churned inside her, pain, anger, and a profound sadness. She thought of the $5,000 gift, of her naive dreams that her family would embrace her. Now, that gift was just a reminder that she'd tried to love people who never truly loved her back. "I'm not their daughter," she whispered, her voice choked, as if saying it aloud would help her accept the truth. In that moment, a decision sparked, not out of vengeance, but liberation. Amabel opened her laptop, logged into her banking app, and began canceling every automatic payment. Electric bill, cancelled. Water bill, cancelled. Internet, insurance, all gone with a few clicks. The screen flashed cancellation successful, but Amabel felt no triumph. Only a strange emptiness, as if she'd just severed the final thread tying her to her family. This wasn't revenge, it was her refusal to keep playing the role of an invisible servant. She closed the laptop, stood, and gazed out at Seattle's night sky, where city lights flickered through the rain. "Enough," she said, her voice steady, a vow to herself. The spring rain fell softly outside Amabel's Seattle apartment window, a quiet curtain starkly contrasting the storm raging in her parents' Portland home. The 35th wedding anniversary, meant to be a celebration of roses and candlelight, had dissolved into chaos as the house plunged into darkness. No electricity, no water, no internet. In her small apartment, Amabel sat by the window, clutching a notebook, her eyes tinged with sadness but calm, as desperate pleas from her family flooded in like crashing waves, pulling her into a drama she no longer wished to play. Her parents' home had become a battlefield of disarray. Meticulously decorated banquet tables now gathered dust under the faint glow of half-burned candles. Guests, dressed in elegant gowns, whispered in confusion, the smell of cold food lingering in the air. Mila, usually radiant like a star in fashion magazines, darted back and forth, her blonde hair disheveled, forcing a strained smile for Raymond, her new boyfriend. She checked her phone obsessively, as if a miracle might restore the lights. Amabel's mother, typically gentle and composed, stood in a corner, clutching a handkerchief, muttering to a guest, "I don't understand, everything was always fine." Her father, face flushed with anger, shouted into the phone at utility providers, only to be met with the cold reply that services had been terminated. Hundreds of miles away, Amabel gazed at the rain, listening to sparrows chirping on wet branches. Her phone lit up relentlessly, each notification a hammer striking the fragile piece she was trying to build. The first message came from her mother, a mix of panic and sweetness. "Amabel, darling, the house is pitch black, and guests are arriving. You're so good at fixing these things, call someone to help." Mila's text followed, sharp and desperate, "Where are you? Raymond thinks we're a mess. Fix this now, don't embarrass me." Her father, as usual, sent a curt command, "Call the providers. Now." Amabel read them, her finger hovering over the screen, but she didn't respond. She set the phone down, opened her notebook, and jotted ideas for her new energy project. She wanted to focus, to let the sound of rain and birds soothe her trembling heart. But a voicemail from Mila stopped her cold. She pressed play, and her sister's voice erupted, trembling, almost screaming, "Amabel, are you trying to ruin me? I told you not to come, but you still found a way to screw everything up. Raymond's doubting our family. Do something." Amabel closed her eyes, letting the words pass like a chilling breeze. She felt no anger, only a strange clarity, as if for the first time, she saw Mila not as a shining star but as a frightened woman, clinging to her carefully crafted image. Mila wasn't blaming her for a mistake but for refusing to keep her sister's spotlight burning. An unexpected twist made Amabel pause. Mila sent another message, attaching a photo of a check. "Here's $2,000 to pay you back," Mila wrote, "for helping the house. Now fix it." Amabel stared at the check, a pang in her chest. It was the first time Mila acknowledged her contributions, but it came with a demand, as if love could be bought. She gave a faint smile, not out of joy but from realizing Mila still didn't get it. Amabel didn't want money, she wanted respect. She left the message unanswered, letting the check sit in her inbox like a symbol of her family's belated recognition. Meanwhile, in Portland, the panic reached a fever pitch. Her mother, in desperation, tried brewing coffee on a gas stove to appease guests, but tears streamed down her face as one left early, muttering about the failed party. Mila, noticing Raymond growing distant, pulled him aside, whispering excuses. "It's just a glitch, don't get the wrong idea." But Raymond, with a cool gaze, only nodded, as if weighing something deeper. Her father, after dozens of futile calls, threw his phone onto a chair, yelling, "Why can't anyone fix this?" No one mentioned Amabel with concern, only with blame, as if she were a broken tool, not a daughter. Amabel stood and stepped onto her small balcony, where the rain had stopped, leaving crisp, cool air. She took a deep breath, her breath mingling with the spring breeze. She thought of all the times she'd rushed to save her family, when the heater broke, when bills piled up, only to receive perfunctory nods. Now, as they begged for help, she chose not to run. Not out of spite, but because she realized she wasn't the one meant to keep their house lit, she was the one meant to keep herself from burning out. Her silence, like sunlight peeking through clouds, was a declaration that she would no longer live to please those who only remembered her in need. She returned inside, picked up a pen, and wrote in her notebook, "Today, I choose myself." She didn't know that, hours later, a video call would change everything, when Raymond inadvertently revealed her role, forcing her family to face a painful truth. But for now, in her warm apartment, Amabel felt a new strength, the strength of rejecting a role she never wanted. Beyond the window of Amabel's Seattle apartment, stars twinkled in the night sky, whispering in stark contrast to the chaos lingering in her parents' Portland home, still reeling from a failed celebration. Wine glasses left stains on white tablecloths, half-burned candles smoked faintly, and the scent of wilted roses hung heavy in the stifling air. Guests had departed early, casting pitying glances and awkward goodbyes. Mila, usually stunning in her red silk dress, now huddled on the sofa, her eyes red-rimmed, struggling to mask her panic in front of Raymond, whose polished demeanor masked a cooling gaze. Amabel's mother, her silver hair disheveled, quietly cleaned, her trembling hands trying to erase the memory of a disastrous day. Her father, ever stoic, stood by the window, staring into the darkness, as if searching for the control he'd lost. Hundreds of miles away, Amabel opened her laptop to prepare for a meeting with her Greenwave Technologies team. Dressed in a deep green sweater, her hair tied high, her breath mingled with the chilly air of her apartment. She didn't think about her family, not Mila scrambling to save face, nor her mother trembling before guests. She wanted to focus on work, on the numbers and charts that would bring her energy storage project closer to reality. But a video call notification from Aunt Ellen, the only relative who still kept in touch, stopped her. She hesitated, her finger hovering over the decline button, but a gut feeling made her accept. The screen lit up, revealing Ellen's face, dimly illuminated by a table lamp, her eyes filled with worry. "Amabel," Ellen said, her voice low, "I don't know where to start. Today, it was a mess. Your mom's exhausted, Mila's a wreck. Do you want to say anything to them?" Amabel took a deep breath, ready to say she had nothing to offer, but before she could speak, a voice cut through from behind Ellen, clear and surprised. "Director Amabel? Is that you?" The screen shook as Ellen turned the phone, and Raymond's face appeared, eyes wide, a half-believing smile forming. Amabel's heart pounded, not from fear, but from an instinct that this moment would change everything. Raymond, whom she'd briefly met at an energy conference, was the new hire reporting directly to her at Greenwave's Seattle branch. But he was also Mila's boyfriend, the man her family fawned over to impress. "You're the co-founder of Greenwave Technologies," Raymond said, his voice a mix of awe and disbelief, glancing at Mila and her parents nearby. "Why didn't anyone tell me she's Mila's sister?" The room in Portland froze. Mila, lips trembling, clutched Raymond's arm, trying to pull him back, as if she could stop his words. Amabel's mother, mid-cleanup, dropped a glass, the shatter ringing like a small explosion. Her father, turning from the window, his face flushed, stammered, You're mistaken. But Raymond, oblivious to the tension, pressed on, his tone innocent but cutting. Mila said her sister just does odd jobs, that the family relies on her because she has money. But she's behind the biggest energy project I've ever seen. She approved my transfer. An unexpected bombshell erupted as Mila, in a panic, blurted, That's not what I meant. I just said Amabel. Amabel dropped out of college, so we didn't want to brag. Her words struck like a knife, not just for their dishonesty, but for exposing a secret Amabel rarely shared. She'd left college to start her company, a choice her family deemed a failure but which led to her success. Amabel, on the other end of the call, felt her breath catch. She'd never told her family about the sleepless nights building Greenwave, the failures before her national recognition. But Mila, instead of pride, had twisted her story into mockery. Mila burst into tears, scrambling to explain, I didn't mean it like that, Raymond, you misunderstood. But Raymond's gaze shifted from admiration to disappointment. Amabel's mother stepped forward, voice shaking, Amabel, say something, don't let this get twisted. Her father, fists clenched, shouted, You've been silent long enough. But Amabel said nothing. She looked at the screen, at her family, those who'd exalted Mila and treated her as a shadow, now unraveling before the truth. She smiled, not from joy, but from a flood of liberation. Thank you, Raymond, she said, her voice soft but sharp as a blade. You've said enough. She ended the call, the screen going black, leaving her family in suffocating silence. Amabel stood and stepped onto her balcony, where the crisp night air sharpened her senses. She breathed deeply, her breath mingling with the breeze, as if shedding a heavy coat. She felt no triumph, only relief, as if the truth, spoken by an outsider, had restored something she'd always deserved, respect. The faint moonlight slipped through the window of Amabel's Seattle apartment, casting a delicate silver sheen across the wooden floor. As if consoling her heart after the storm that had just swept through. Just a day earlier, in an unexpected video call, Raymond, Mila's boyfriend, had inadvertently revealed the truth that Amabel was the co-founder of Greenwave Technologies. Leaving her family, those who'd treated her as a shadow, stunned and unraveling before their own deceit. Mila had sobbed, her parents stood frozen, and Amabel, with a smile of liberation, ended the call, leaving them in painful truth. But she never imagined that, mere hours later, her family would come to her, not to apologize, but to drag her back into their cycle of exploitation, leading to a dramatic confrontation that would sever the final threads tying her to them. The evening after the disastrous anniversary, Amabel sat in the corner of her living room, cradling a cold cup of coffee, her eyes skimming notes for her new energy storage project. She tried to focus, to pull her mind away from memories of her family, not Mila's red-rimmed eyes or her mother's trembling voice. She wanted to think of the future, of upcoming meetings, of the dreams she was building. But a flurry of texts from Mila stopped her. Amabel, I was wrong, Mila wrote, her tone uncharacteristically soft. Raymond dumped me. He said I wasn't honest, that I didn't respect you. You're his boss, you could say something to change his mind, right? I'm begging you. Another message followed, I'm bringing a gift to your place tomorrow morning to thank you. Amabel read, her fingers tightening around the mug, but her heart didn't waver. She remembered the times Mila stood in the spotlight, accepting flowers and praise, while Amabel lingered in the background, unnamed. Mila had never apologized for her mockery, never thanked her for the nights Amabel worked to keep the family afloat. Now, with Mila's glamour fading, she begged Amabel to fix it, as if Amabel were a switch to flip on command. She typed a brief reply, Mila, I'm not the keeper of your happiness. He saw you through how you treated me. She hit send, then blocked Mila's number, unwilling to hear more pleas. The next morning, a knock at the door jolted Amabel from fitful sleep. She opened it, her breath catching as she saw not just Mila, but her parents standing there. Mila, eyes swollen, held a silver-wrapped gift box, her voice trembling. "Amabel, I brought this to make peace." But her parents, faces stern, carried no reconciliation. Her father stepped inside without invitation, slapping a stack of documents onto the table. Her mother, silver hair disheveled, stood behind, hands clasped tightly, as if suppressing tears. "Amabel," her father began, his voice cold as stone, "we need you. Mila lost Raymond, lost a major contract. The family's struggling. This is the plan for you to help." Amabel flipped through the documents, her heart pounding as she saw a list of demands: $4,000 monthly for debts and expenses, plus a one-time $60,000 to rebuild Mila's brand. But the unexpected blow left her reeling: a side document listing family assets, the Portland house, a plot of ancestral land, quietly transferred to Mila's name, with a note that Amabel didn't need assets since she has a good job. They'd cut her out of the family inheritance, yet still expected her to bankroll it. Amabel looked up, eyes blazing, her voice trembling with fury but sharp. "You removed me from the family assets, then demand I pay to maintain them for Mila? What do you think I am, a money machine?" Her mother burst into tears, reaching for her hand. "Amabel, don't misunderstand. We just want what's best for Mila. You're strong, you can help." But her father, instead of apologizing, slammed the table, his voice thundering. "You dare speak to us like that? We gave you everything, and now you turn your back over some money? You're ungrateful." Amabel stood, taller than herself in that moment. Sunlight from the window bathed her face, highlighting an unshakable resolve. "Ungrateful," she said, her voice slow but heavy as lead. "I spent my youth becoming someone you never saw. I built a company, a life, without you ever looking at me like you looked at Mila. You didn't give me love, only demands. I'm not your tool, and I'm no longer your daughter." She opened the door, gesturing for them to leave. "I'll hire a lawyer to handle the assets. Get out, and don't come back." Mila dropped the gift box to the floor, sobbing. "Amabel, we're sisters." But Amabel didn't look at her. Her father, fists clenched, stormed out without turning back. As the door closed, Amabel slid to the floor, back against the wall, covering her face. Tears streamed down, but not from pain. They were tears of freedom. She had cut the final tie to a family that only knew how to use her. Early morning sunlight filtered through Seattle's cherry blossom trees, draping the city in a radiant golden glow, as if welcoming a new Amabel, one unshackled from the weight of toxic expectations. As the light streamed through her window, Amabel felt a fresh rhythm in her heart, a pulse of freedom, self-respect, and a life she was crafting for herself. In the weeks following the confrontation, Amabel slowed down, as if meeting a version of herself she'd never known. She no longer checked her phone for apologies from Mila or her parents, words she knew would never come. Instead, she poured her energy into Greenwave Technologies, leading a groundbreaking renewable energy storage project. In her bright office, she stood before her team, her voice clear, her eyes sparkling like sunlight on the sea. She explained charts with confidence, no trace of the girl who once bowed under mockery. One afternoon, while signing a contract with an international partner, Amabel realized she didn't need her family's proud glances to feel worthy. She found it in her colleagues' respectful nods, her team's applause, and her own heart. One Sunday morning, Amabel decided to refresh her living space. She opened a closet and pulled out an old wooden box of keepsakes, a bracelet her mother gave her as a child, a letter Mila wrote when she started college, and a photo of herself standing alone at her graduation. She ran her fingers over the bracelet, feeling the cold metal, and smiled faintly. These mementos once tethered her to her family, but now they were just fragments of a past that no longer defined her. She packed them away, tucking the box into a corner of the closet, and whispered, "I don't need the past to move forward." The small but profound act was a vow that she was ready for a new beginning. Unexpectedly, an email from a former colleague, now at an international energy organization, landed in Amabel's inbox. "Amabel," it read, "we've followed your project and want to invite you to speak at the Global Energy Conference in Paris. Your story, from startup to industry leader, is an inspiration to millions." Amabel's heart raced as she read. She'd never imagined her work would take her to an international stage, where she could share not just technology but her journey of overcoming prejudice and toxic expectations. She replied, "I'm honored. I'll be there." The email, like a spring breeze, affirmed that her worth lay not in what her family had dismissed but in what she'd built herself. Amabel began opening up to the world, shedding her fear of rejection. She joined a community group planting trees along Seattle's river, where she met people passionate about saving the planet. One afternoon, standing in a grassy field, hands caked with soil, she laughed heartily when a new friend teased that she was better at planting trees than being a CEO. That radiant, carefree laugh was something she'd never had while living to please her family. She shared stories about green technology, listened to others' dreams, and felt her heart lighten, like a bird soaring in the sky. One evening, Amabel stepped into her favorite coffee shop, where the aroma of roasted beans blended with soft jazz. She chose a corner by the window, ordered a latte, and watched the city lights twinkle through the glass. On the wall, a wooden sign read, "Home is where you choose to belong." Amabel sipped her latte, its sweet bitter taste spreading, and smiled. Home was no longer the Portland house where she'd been treated as a tool. Home was the lively meetings at Greenwave, the grassy field where she planted trees, the small apartment where she wrote her dreams. Home was herself, a strong, confident Amabel, no longer living for others' expectations. An unexpected moment came with a handwritten letter from Aunt Ellen, the only family member who'd ever tried to understand her. "Amabel," she wrote, "I saw you in an article about green energy. I won't apologize for your parents or Mila, but I want you to know, you're a pride this family doesn't deserve. Keep living, dear." Amabel's eyes stung as she read, but she didn't cry. She folded the letter, tucked it into a drawer, and whispered, "Thank you, Aunt Ellen." Ellen's words were a spark, but Amabel didn't need them to move forward. She had found her own light. Amabel stepped out of the coffee shop onto the bustling street, where city lights mingled with the scent of spring blossoms. A breeze swept through, carrying a sense of freedom she'd never known. She tilted her head, letting the light touch her face, and felt a new strength, the strength of someone who'd learned to love herself. Her message echoed, not in words, but in how she lived. Family is not a one-way obligation. From a girl forgotten by her family, living in the shadow of her sister Mila, she'd become a woman unbound, free from toxic expectations. Her small apartment, once a place where she swallowed tears when her parents missed her award ceremony, was now a haven of self-respect. Amabel didn't need her family to define her worth. She found it in her work, her friends, and her own heart. Her silence, once a weapon to expose the truth, was now a song of peace. Family isn't where you're born, it's where you choose to belong. Have you ever sacrificed too much, only to realize you deserve to be loved for who you are? Pause and ask yourself, where is your home, truly? Her story is a reminder, you are worthy of love for being you. Let it inspire you. Like, comment, and subscribe to join us in sharing meaningful stories. Your support is the spark that fuels more compelling content to touch your heart.